and Merry Christmas and welcome to this weird Christmassy thing we're doing with books. As you can tell by the Christmas hat, we are in the spirit and we're going to be doing lots of videos talking about books. But before we get into that idea of varying books and book recommendations, we thought we'd let you know a little bit about our personal reading habits. And it's not an original idea, we stole it shamelessly. And it's from Ariel Bissett, we think.
Yes,
yeah.
The reading habits tag,
yeah.
I think, started there.
Yeah, so we're going to just shamelessly copy it and thank Ariel very much for the recommendation, because it's actually a really cool idea to kind of share reading habits. Maybe we'll learn things about each other. If you don't know, hi, I'm Sam, this is Olivia. We're married. Yeah, and we read a lot, and so here we are. So we're going to go through 12 questions. It's 12?
It is 12, yeah.
For 12 Days of Christmas, that makes sense. The hat is slipping.
No, it's 11.
It's 11 questions.
I thought there were 12.
There should be a 12th question. Okay, there's apparently just 11 questions, so we'll make up a 12th one. Canadians are weird, who knows? Ah. Yeah, so Olivia's going to be reading the questions, and we're going to be taking turns to answer them to just let you know our personal reading habits. Maybe we can learn something about each other, maybe not. I mean, to be honest, we do most of our reading within eyesight of each other. Although, actually, Olivia does a lot of reading while I stream.
That's true, I do.
TV
I could be doing secret reading stuff
secret
that
reading.
you don't know about.
Alright, first question, hit me up.
First question. Do you have a certain place at home for reading?
I was actually always one of those people when I was growing up that I was known by my parents as just being a person who would bring out a book at any moment I would stop, so I've always been very good at just reading anywhere. But at the moment, I read a lot. I read every morning at breakfast, and if I'm really into a book, I'll take my lunch where I eat breakfast on the dining table instead of upstairs at my desk. So I guess the dining table is the number one place I read.
I would agree.
Yeah, but I will also, if I'm really into a book, I will just read it randomly.
Yeah, you'll just be sitting at the end of the bed sometimes.
Yeah.
Just read it.
If I have a Kindle, if I have a book on my Kindle or my phone, like, and we're out or doing something and there's even a moment, I'll just take the book out. I'm great at just going back in the middle of a sentence and carrying on. How about yourself?
I don't have a certain place, I don't think, do I? Like, at breakfast, no, I'll read at breakfast, so I read at the breakfast table, but then through the rest of the day, the sofa.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sofa, I would have said the sofa.
Yeah, if I'm, like, really tired and I go to bed early one evening, I'll read on my phone in bed, but I wouldn't say that's really a reading place. Breakfast table and sofa.
Okay.
I think would be my two. But then in the summer I was sitting in the greenhouse.
Yeah, was sitting in the greenhouse like a sunflower.
So I would say kind of anywhere. I don't really have
anywhere.
I will lean towards certain types of books in certain types of places. So, like, if I'm in bed, it would be on my phone.
That's fair. Different reading mediums for, like me with Kindles if I'm out.
Yeah. Breakfast table, well, not at the moment. I would tend to prefer paper.
Yeah.
At the table.
Okay.
But then at lunchtime, because food can't be eaten with one hand, I would prefer my phone.
Fair enough. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm
all over the place.
I'm anyway. Number 2. Bookmark or random piece of paper?
I am a bookmarker. I have a Meeples bookmark that was given to me as a promotional thing to try and get me to buy a big gaming table at UK Games Expo several years ago. I don't normally use a bookmark. I've only started doing that semi-recently. Prior to that, I would just remember the page. I have a really good memory for where things are in a book. I'll just close the book and then I'll come back to it even a week later and I'll know I won't know what page I was on. I'll just know where I was and I'll just go back to it. I like the bookmark now though because it also feels really solid.
I'm a mess when I come to this one. I think it's probably I have a stack of bookmarks because my grandmother is always lovingly sending them to me.
Yes, there's a lot of bookmarks upstairs.
Yeah, but I rarely use them.
You'll fold sometimes.
So, well, some books I like writing in them, so I will use the pencil that I've been writing in them as a bookmark.
Yes, I do often scratch my hand on the pencil lead when I pick it up sometimes.
And then it's a good way of storing your pencil there, and you also then don't need a bookmark.
That's why there's lots of lines on the top pages.
Yes, doesn't always work. Don't use pens though, so it's fine.
No.
Sometimes I just won't use anything, I can just remember the page. But that's more when I'm reading like chapter by chapter. I've kind of stopped turning pages over, that's actually something I used to do.
Okay.
But then sometimes I will just pick up anything I can find. Not so much now, because I'm at home a lot more, but like when you're commuting and stuff and you've got train tickets and bus tickets, I would just use those as bookmarks. Not so much receipts, I don't like the receipts idea. So I'm a mess. Very rarely use the stack of bookmarks that I have. Luckily, my grandmother doesn't have the internet, so she can't watch them.
Yeah, that's so she can't know. So as far as she asks, she knows you use them all.
They're there, I appreciate them.
Every book
They're
has
lovely,
a bookmark.
but I'm just too scatty to stick with a bookmark.
Fair.
Yeah, at the moment it's pencil, I think.
Pay no attention to the camera having moved there.
One battery change later.
One battery change later.
Okay, question number 3, you've kind of answered already.
Okay.
Can you just stop reading, or do you have to stop after a chapter or a certain amount of pages?
Yeah, I can just stop reading anytime, anywhere, any sentence, any word. I've stopped in the middle of a hyphenated word before and came back a week later and it was fine.
I don't have to get to the end of the chapter. I like to get to the end of the chapter. But when you've got books where there are more sections than chapters and you've got hundreds of pages, you can't do that. Got to get to the end of the sentence. Got to get to the end of the paragraph, ideally.
I prefer to do all these
Yeah.
things, but I can stop in the middle of a word.
Can't stop in the end. No, I can't stop in the middle of a sentence. Can stop in the middle of a paragraph if you've got to. Like
Yeah.
you've got to get off the bus, otherwise.
Yeah.
You know. But I will tend to try and read to the end of a section or a chapter. Or...
I will too, but I cannot.
Yes. I can. But
Especially,
it hurts me.
you know what? Actually, it depends on the book, right? I'm reading a detective mystery novel right now, and I could not imagine stopping in the middle of a paragraph. Like, I had to get to the end of the chapter. Sorry, middle of the chapter. I had to do the end of the chapter because each chapter builds for a minor mystery, as detective novels tend to do. And so, if you stop in the middle of it, you think about it for ages.
Yeah.
Whereas books that have a kind of slower progression or a grander story, I think, for me, it's a lot easier to stop.
Yeah, I guess if you, like, I wouldn't want to stop in the middle of a conversation, for example. Whereas if it's much more descriptive and you feel each paragraph is different from the last, you could stop at the end of a paragraph.
Yeah.
Or,
I used to stop.
it depends on the book.
I used to stop in the middle of chapters a lot with Terry Pratchett because he had a habit of making individual sections within chapters, and sometimes you get perspective shifts within chapters quite a lot, and it would do like, end the paragraph and then it would go dot 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 and then it would change, and now the dot 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 would be my time to put the book away.
Number 4, do you eat or drink while reading?
I can. I read with breakfast and I will sometimes read with lunch, so I'm fine with doing that, but on the whole I don't need to,
Yeah, you don't need to.
I don't
you
need,
need
like,
to
a
have
snack.
a drink or no.
Water would be good.
Yeah,
I like having
but
water.
I don't. It's not.
I don't really like drink. I'm not really the type of people who have like a glass of wine with a book. I don't really do that. You
yeah.
do sometimes.
I
but
like the
a
idea
half
of
a
in
beer.
the summer, like you go and sit in the garden and like you have like half a beer. Or
Yeah, we homebrew, so
glass of
it's nice to
wine
drink
and-
our homebrew and read.
Yeah,
but no,
but-
it's not like a habit.
No, that's more just like you're sitting out in the sun and you feel like you're kind of.
It's more like you just feel like a beer.
You feel like you're doing something you're supposed to do in summer.
Yeah.
But no. Well, yeah, read for breakfast.
Yeah, so I'm already drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I drink a smoothie, but yeah.
Tend to read with lunch. So
I
yes,
probably
would-
will today, only because I'm into this book.
That's when I know you're
That's
enjoying
what,
the book.
yeah.
But yeah, you don't have to. It also depends on what the food is. Sometimes,
Soup.
yeah, like porridge, smoothie, soup. They're easy to eat, so you're focusing on the book. Whereas if you've got like a full plate of something that you want to focus on,
Yeah.
I can't then focus on the book.
Yeah.
Drinks, I don't really care. Drinks, I'll drink them if they're there.
Yeah.
If they're not, they're not. Number 5, multitasking, music or TV while reading.
No, I read and I read. I mean, I multitask in the sense that I can put a book down and do something
No,
else.
this is about like you have. Do you have music on in the background?
No.
Do you have a TV on in the
No,
background?
I can't do that. I can't watch anything. I can't listen to anything. I might listen to the same music that I would work to, which is wordless lo-fi hip-hop, but that's only if I just can't bother to take my headphones off. I would prefer to read in absolute silence. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Apart from if you're on a train or a bus and people
yeah.
are being loud around you, then I will either put my headphones on and not listen to anything, or I will put kind of like a mellow kind of.
Yeah, like lo-fi
Playlist.
hip-hop for that.
Yeah,
it's
just
a
to
drown.
block
It
them
drowns out. But otherwise, no. I need to
TV.
hear the book.
I'm confused how you're
I don't know
reading and
people-
watching TV.
I know people do
My
that.
mum, I actually remember when I was younger, my mum would have the TV on in the evening, but then I do remember her sitting and reading sometimes while the TV was on. So I don't know
It's just mad.
whether she was multitasking
They
or
can't
whether-
be
I'm not
really
sure.
listening or reading.
I don't. I feel like she used to do that a lot, but that might have been because the TV was always on in the background. As a
Specialise.
default. But I couldn't
Focus.
do that. Like
Nope.
I wouldn't.
Yeet.
I'd end up not watching the TV.
I'd end up being angry at myself.
Number 6.
Yeah.
One book at a time or several at once.
I already know the answer to this for both of us.
We're very different here.
I read one book at a time. I have really struggled to have more than one book going on. I really immerse myself. For the reading challenges we've been doing recently, I have been trying to read the reading challenge as a separate book. But sometimes when I do that, I think that I end up putting one book as my workbook and one book as my fun book.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
like one book more than the other. So I really can only read one book.
See, I can't do that.
The absolute
I
opposite.
can't. I have.
She actually can't.
At the moment, I actually am. I think it's normally a good sign when because I always have like 4 to 6 books on the go. But when I put all the others aside and just start reading one, that's a good sign that I'm really enjoying that book and I want to get through it. But no, paperback book on my phone, and then normally like a couple of others, but they'll all be very different. So like on my phone is normally non-fiction, classics and more paperback. So like you don't get confused because you're reading things from very different genres. I couldn't read, say, like 2 Victorian books at the same time, or I don't know, 2 mystery books. Like I couldn't read within the same genre.
Olivia has a book on her phone usually because she wakes up before me in the mornings, most mornings, so she'll often read in the morning while I'm still asleep.
Yeah, I also just like the idea of you've got something there, so if you're out and you're stuck in a queue or whatever.
Yeah.
Also,
I usually just bust up the Kindle.
Library books are on here.
Yeah.
And I don't
Very
want to pay for
different that
library
way.
books.
That's probably the biggest difference between us in that.
I guess, yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's not that I get bored with a book. I just
can't multifocus
I
like that.
In the same way that you would watch multiple different TV shows at the same time, read different books at the same time.
I wouldn't watch different TV shows concurrently, though.
But you have, though, because like
No, I mean immediately concurrently.
No, but I won't switch between them at the same time. So, like,
Okay,
I would
fair.
say I've got a paperback, I will read that with breakfast. But then I go off, I do my day, but then at lunchtime I might pick up my phone and read what's on my phone. I couldn't sit on the sofa and say in the space of an hour switch between the two. That would kind of...
That idea is insane to me.
Yeah, I'm with one book at one time, but I might have multiple books that I'm like reading at a time.
Description of polyamory.
Number 7, reading at home or everywhere?
Everywhere, but preferably reading at home. Home is my space. But I have no problem reading elsewhere, with the caveat that I think Olivia's probably going to agree with me, that I would not take a precious book out.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'd agree. Certain books are not really designed to go out of the house, are they?
Though we've recently done a big book order of... we actually went and got them, of like really lovely old editions. Like we got these pocket Thackeray's. I would take them out, even though they're beautiful and ornate, because they're designed to be taken out. I think a book that was made to be a pocket book should be treated as a pocket book, even if that gets it ruined.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you. Like the Penguin Orange classics, they're very much designed to be put in a pocket.
Yeah.
So I would take those out, whereas like the Deluxe Library classic, whatever they're called, I wouldn't take those out. But yeah, read anywhere. I read better at home.
Oh yeah.
Because I can just focus.
But again, I can just stop and start. So.
Read on trains, read on buses.
Do you know the way to get through public transport?
Number 8, reading out loud or silently in your head?
Reading out loud? Come on.
I don't.
You're reading silently in my head. I'm not on Neanderthal. Though, okay, actually, I'm going to say something. I do sometimes read out loud. I actually really like the way words sound sometimes. And when I read a really like poignant or good phrase, sometimes I'll read it out loud. And I think it's kind of like how you smell food. Sometimes I think that hearing it makes me appreciate it differently. Especially in fantasy, when you have like ways of playing with words a little differently. But when it's a good author, I think you can tell I'm really enjoying a text and I think the author's great if you hear me now and again. Olivia's probably tuned me out now, but sometimes I will just kind of randomly read a line or like read a phrase under my breath usually, so I feel embarrassed about it.
Yeah, I don't notice you do that.
Okay, great, she doesn't notice it. I do that sometimes. When something I think really hits me right, I'll say it out loud to hear it in a different way. And I do that when writing as well. Sometimes if I think that a phrase doesn't quite sound right, saying it can help me change it. Yourself?
Silently. 100% silently. Hate reading out loud, reminds me of being at school.
Yeah.
It's traumatising.
I will say I like to read to you.
Yes, yeah, I
really like to read to Olivia. We don't do it often, but I do like that. Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice.
Yeah, no, it's nice. Like when you read stories at Halloween and...
Yeah, we have a little tradition of reading stories that are relevant. Like in Burns Night, we read all of Burns' poetry. I read it in like a dramatic way. I read The Raven at Halloween.
Yeah, that's nice. I just don't have the confidence to do it. It just makes me feel like I'm at school being forced
theatrical.
to read. You are. I'm not. 100% silent.
Yeah. Funny how I had such a strong reaction. I was like, oh wait, actually, I do that.
Yeah. Number 9. Do you read ahead or ever skip pages?
I'll never skip a page. That's wrong. But I do read ahead to the next page, and I don't like it. I don't mean to. I'm a very fast reader, like weirdly fast.
You are.
Like uncannily fast. And sometimes I will be reading and I notice my brain has internalized information from the next page. I
Really?
often... Yeah.
You're just like scanning it like it's a photograph. And
somewhat, yeah. I read word by word, but sometimes my brain will just... I'll pick it up from the next page and I'll know what's going to happen at the end of the chapter. Like, you know, the next page is... It's especially when the next page is the end of the chapter and, like, you know, it ends, like, halfway up the page and you know it's the end of the chapter. My brain will scan that line and I'll see it and I'll just read it and I'll be annoyed with myself because in good books, the end of the chapter usually contains a bam bam that keeps you reading. And now I'm like, oh, no, I'm not there yet. Brain, stop.
I don't know how you're doing that.
I don't know. I'm not willful with it. It just happens.
No, I can't do that.
But I'll never willfully skip ahead.
See, I will, but only if I hate the book.
Oh, yeah, only to like, oh, what happens in this book?
I would never do it unless it's a book where I'm like, right, I can't read this anymore. So, How to Kill Your Family. I was like, what, halfway through, and I was like, I can't read the rest of this. So I then skipped to the end and did actually read the last chapter because I guess I cared enough to know what happened.
If I'm gonna DNF a book, I'll do that.
Or like the first time I read Jane Eyre, I had to read it within like by a certain date.
Yeah.
And it was boring me a little bit, and so I do remember I was just skimming it and just like skipping large chunks of description and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was...
I have skimmed. Skimmed.
That was also because I was in a rush. I had like so many days and it had to be finished.
Yeah.
But no, not normally. Like I have to really dislike a book and know I'm not going to finish it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I remember one time when I definitely have done that. When I was younger reading Lord of the Rings, there's a section in the Two Towers where after the Battle of Helm's Deep, and Gimli goes into this long description of the caves behind Helm's Deep. And I read it when I was like 11 or 12, and I was so bored. And I just skipped to the end, and I realized he was still talking about it, and I skipped. But what's interesting is that going back, it's actually one of my favorite passages to look at it now. It's actually gorgeous and wonderful world building and really wonderful, like it tells you so much about the dwarves and the world and the fact that there's this beauty behind this utilitarian military structure. It's really great.
You were just too young to appreciate it.
I was too young to appreciate it. I think I read too young. That's the only time I can think of.
Number 10. Breaking the spine or keeping it new?
Contentious. I don't like to break the spine, but I accept its inevitability. But I think for the first third or half of a book, I will be quite dainty with the pages, and I don't like to damage a spine. Olivia?
There's a process.
There's a process. The contention.
Hardbacks should stay in perfect condition. I don't want hardbacks to get damaged.
Yeah.
Collector's edition paperbacks, so again like the Deluxe Library or the 100th anniversary or whatever it is, W.H. Smith Railway ones, they should stay in good condition. Paperbacks normally, you start off wanting them to be in good condition, but once you've got one line down the spine or you've got one crinkle on the page or whatever, then you just have to embrace it. And then you just kind of go, right, well, actually, this book has more character if it's destroyed.
I've seen her fold them completely around. It hurts.
Because I've reached that point where there's already a scratch or something on it. And I go, okay, well, now this book is just going to show that it's been read and it's going to show that it's been worn.
I will completely agree with you. I love worn books. And I love books of mine that are worn. But I don't like wearing them. I don't like the process. And once the book is done and I see it on the shelf and it has those creases, I love it all the more.
Yeah.
And then I don't mind, like on the second reread, like the first several of the Patrick O'Briens, they're like all turned to shit. They're not damaged. I take good care.
Yeah, it never damaged them.
But the spines are very well worn and the creases. I don't mind that. But when I'm reading it, I am cautious.
I've always been like this though. I remember my mum used to be so frustrated with me when I was younger because I used to have a way of holding the books where I would hold it right down the bottom.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
And all of my books, the bottom part of the spine would rip. And I remember my mum constantly having to go at me, make sure you're not holding the book like that. And I would argue and be like, well, they're my books. But then she'd lend me one of her books. And I just remember her just being like, please stop holding my books like that. You're ruining the spines. So I've got better because my books don't have that anymore. I do now hold them like books and I don't rip the spines.
If she has a book of mine, I tell her to be careful of the spine. And if I have a book of hers, she has to basically be like, please don't drop it in your soup. Yeah, for all my words of caution, I'm very clumsy.
Your books have always got food and drink.
It is impossible to find a book that I have read and not find some kind of meal from that period of when I was reading it. I've opened up books from when I was a kid, and I've opened up and like, I wonder what this was that day. And it's like brown stain. It's not like on big, but it's small.
No, there were some pretty
Crumbs.
bad ones when we were at school. You'd lend me books, and I'd take them home, and I'd be reading them, and I'd just open them up, and there'd just be like food stuff.
An entire steak falls out.
There were times where there was like actually like 3D pieces of food, and I remember being like, "Oh, what
You know
were
those
you
cartoon
eating?"
images of like when you go in when the characters go into a stomach and it's like an apple with like the bite taken out of it. It comes down. It's like
I think it was worse for me because this book had come from a different house, and someone had clearly dropped food on it, and I didn't know what the food was.
It could be
and
anything.
It was just like, yeah, and it was just like, oh, this isn't really very nice. So you got a lot better because I don't find food in your books anymore, more just like stains.
Stains.
Whereas I hate stains in books.
It doesn't help that I have a mustache. And or the beard, and so I'll take I'll drink like soup or a smoothie or a drink of water, and then something will amuse me, or even just I breathe slightly heavily. I'll breathe out my nose, and I can see the droplets land. I'm like, oh no. Or I'll have something in my beard and I won't realize it, and then I'll be reading the book and I'll just like shake or nod or something like that, and then it's not much, but just small little dripples, and I'm like, that's disappointing.
This is why you never lend people your books.
Never.
You never borrow library books. No. You're cautious when you buy second-hand books because you never know what you're going to find when you open them up. You can find half of someone's breakfast.
Only buy a second-hand book if you're pretty sure the person who owned it is dead, so that they, can't have inflicted it recently.
Yeah, it's a couple of 100 years old.
Oh no, my tortilla flats, 1960. That's nice. Yeah,
but we've improved. I don't completely break the spines anymore, and you don't drop half a
I don't
million
lick
in
it
your
anymore.
books. Yeah.
I do smell books very strongly though.
This is why you shouldn't be eating or drinking with books.
But we both will.
Yes.
Forever.
And why I should only be allowed to read on my phone.
But we won't. You can't stop us.
11.
Last one.
Do you write in your books?
I do not write in my books. No, I have a very good memory, so I will remember comments about books. I might write. You know what I do? I write down things from books somewhere else. I have a lot of writing documents. An amateur writer guy here, and so I'll write down phrases. I remember one I wrote down, and I actually have a Word document, and it's just that line. I can't even remember what book it's from now. She was made of light. I can't even remember what it is, but
I meant to write the book underneath.
I think I might have. It's been a little while, but I don't really like to draw in it, and I think part of that is that I have very poor handwriting, and I'm not very good with my fine motor skills when it comes to with like a pencil. So if I mean to underline something, often I will like cover a word by accident, and if I write, it'll be illegible. So I just don't see much point.
Huh. I mean, I've already answered this one. I use a pencil as a bookmark. I mean,
yeah,
but only a pencil. You don't write in books. That's my with a pen. That's my rule. No pen.
I think this is important to note. Whereas other questions you've asked where we have a division, it might insult the other one. I actually love it that you write in books. I just don't like it because I wouldn't write well in books and they'd be illegible, and I wouldn't want to come across my own illegible handwriting or scrawled lettering.
But that's why you do it in pencil. Because in pencil, if you make a mistake, you can rub it out.
No,
if you look back at it and you're annoyed about the fact that you wrote in that
everything I write would be a mistake. You know what I mean? But with Olivia's, I'll be reading a book that she's had, and then something will be underlined, and on the next page, it'll be underlined the next page, and I get to spend the whole page thinking, oh, this is going to be good. Olivia underlined it. And sometimes I'll read, it usually means, I love it when there's underlinings in books. I love it, because that means, oh, this is great. And that's why I like the Kindle feature of, like, highlighted things. This has been highlighted.
I never use that.
No, you don't. I really like that. I like finding things that other people have found poignant, and I like to think about whether or not I agree with that. And I don't know, it lends credence to its like value. Whereas I like reading something, and then Olivia sometimes puts little notes in the margin, like, and it's usually exclamations of "What on earth?" or like "What is this?" I love it. It's like little treats for me in books.
Oh.
I love it.
Yeah, that's kind of why I do it. I write the date in the beginning of the book of when I'm reading it. I'll underline. I'll write notes, and then the idea is if I read it again, like years down the line, I know when I first read it, I can see what I was thinking at the time. Like, do I think anything different? But my rule is it has to be in pencil. Like the copy of Tom Brown's School Days that I got in Edinburgh from the second-hand bookshop, lovely edition, but someone has gone through in a green felt tip pen and underlined tons of stuff. It's just ruined it.
Wrong.
And it's like a really obnoxious, thick
It's like
green felt
criminal.
tip. Yeah,
That's bad.
Don't do that. But pencil, or maybe like a really fine like biro
That's
or something.
That's an evil act.
Yeah.
An
No, do
evil-
not put felt tip pens in books.
Evil act. Okay, so those the questions stopped at 11, and I have no idea why, because it's the 12 days of Christmas.
Oh, because she didn't come up with it for the 12 Days of Christmas. She just came up with it as a video.
But why would you pick 11? 11
We're
is like
just
the worst number.
stealing it for the 12 Days of Christmas.
11's the worst number.
You need a nice round dozen.
A round dozen. And it's actually for us going to be a baker's dozen, because we each have a question for each other. So, you go first.
Okay. Do you have a particular genre that you lean towards, or like certain genres at certain times of year, or do you just read anything?
I read anything, and it's just like with my fascinations with varying topics in terms of my hobbies, my attention shifts from genre to genre in like a confined period. And Olivia knows what I mean. I will be, Olivia will be like, oh, he's interested in ships again. And everything I read will be about Age of Sail tall ships. It'll be Aubrey Maturin this and Hornblower that. And did you know about the ration and non-fiction as well, and history of the rationing of the Royal Navy and stuff like that. Whereas right now it's a little bit more in like World War II, and I'm interested in old history. And maybe it'll be Romans, and another time it'll be blah blah blah.
You tend to bounce between a few, like ships. You always come back to.
I'll
World
always
War
come
II,
back to it.
Yeah, they're kind of like your main
The best time periods,
ones.
yeah. But I will flit. But when I'm in that, I will be typically in that genre, wider genre. You know what I mean? My question's a little bit more boring, but if you had to pick one book to become, that is to say, to go into experience, what book would that be? And I'm not going to limit you in terms of like you have to experience the plot of the book. Because then you just pick like orgies on Another World 17 or something.
Okay.
I mean, just in terms of experience the world of a text. One book. Which book?
Okay, so it's not going to be like one of my favourite books because, The Book Thief, for example, I don't want to go into that world.
Yeah.
I do not want to be in World War II Germany.
Yeah.
Probably a Victorian book. I think it'd be really cool to experience either Victorian London or like I'm thinking of like North and South, which is supposed to be like Victorian Manchester, fictional Victorian Manchester. Probably one of those, probably going more for London, so probably I guess a Dickens.
Yeah.
Which particular Dickens, I don't know, I'm not really sure how much it would matter because they're all set, well most of them are set Victorian London. Like Bleak House could be quite interesting. Victorian London, it's exploring the terrible court system.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool to see. But then I would also quite like to see North and South. I think it'd be, even though I've never been to Manchester, I feel like the North is much more interesting in Victorian times and industrialisation. And I feel like that would be a lot cooler to see than London. Like, so
it's London.
Yeah. Maybe North and South.
Cool.
Probably regret that when I'm very hungry and have poor water quality.
And your hands trapped in a threshing machine.
Yeah.
Cool. That was our 13 questions for Christmas. For the 12 days of Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Thank you very much for watching. If you would like to answer the questions yourself, why not leave them in the comments? It's always cool to learn unique facts about one another's reading habits. I think while reading is a shared interest for billions, we all have our own ways of doing things and things we hold as tight to our personalities.
Some of us like to share our dinner with our books. Some people won't even let a drink near their books.
And some people like to break the spines in half like a torturer.
I don't do that anymore.
So thank you so much for watching. Of course, subscribe to the channel, something I probably should have said at the beginning. Leave a like, but not dislike, because it doesn't matter anymore. Thanks, YouTube. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.